What's up, everybody? It's another edition of Bulldog Uncensored, episode 3 of season 2. It's a special one, a little bit of a Halloween vibe for you. Today I have with me C. Ernst Harth of 13 Ghosts. Ernst, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Josh.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad that we've been able to get everything squared away this time around. We started last week and had some technical difficulties, but we're back in action and here to talk about Ernst's acting career. So we'll start
Yeah.
up with 13 Ghosts. How'd that
Yeah.
come about for you?
Well, like every other audition, I get a call telling me that they want to see me for something. And also, like most auditions, they usually don't give you any information beyond the bare minimum. So I went in to audition, and apparently they wanted big scary guys. That's
Yeah.
all. So I went in, and the first audition was basically they wanted you to stand there and look scary, uh, give scary eyes, give scary moaning, uh, do that, and then walk to this point and go, all the silliness. I think they basically wanted to get a feel for the different people that were out there, and because they didn't really have a concept of the ghosts yet. Then I got hired, and I was told that I would be playing a character named Couch Potato because this film went through so many versions. I must have, I don't know, 10, 11 scripts of different writers, different versions. One of them was written by James Gunn, because a lot of these scripts, they have all these hired guns who they bring in to, pop it up to add some action here or to liven up. And everybody has their own skill set. So they
Right.
have all these ghost writers and what have you. But so originally it was Couch Potato, and my character basically was died sitting on a couch, and he was rotting away under his clothes, and you'd see the shirt rising and lowering because rats were coming in and out of holes on his body, and eyes,
Yes.
rats coming out of his eye sockets and stuff. And so that was the first concept. Then I went back for another makeup test. And this time they had changed the character to a guy who was into BDSM, who was into bondage. And he had a little woman who apparently was his dominatrix, who was hanging on off the side of him on like a leather contraption of sorts. And basically, the story went that he passed out in the, orgasmically passed out and basically fell on her and smothered her, and that's how she died.
That's why they
Um,
call it nature's sleeping pill, right?
exactly. And then it eventually it became. I don't know if it was because they liked the way I looked or it reminded them of something, but it went from being that character to being a big baby, and instead of being a dominatrix, she was now my little mother. And I don't know, somebody must have smoked something good over the weekend to go from bondage and dominatrix to mother and son.
Yeah, that's a hell
But
of a Bates Motel switch there.
yeah, and like I had mentioned to you when we were talking previously,
Yeah.
so much stuff in film is done in pre-production, and they have to have such an early start on things. And for example, in the movie, they have the Black Zodiac, and they have the big book with all the different backstories of all the different monsters, and it has all the old-fashioned drawings and what have you. And I have a card here, which is a postcard that the studio gave me to use for promotion. And this is a copy of the Black Zodiac for my character. And as you can see from this photo, this looks way more like the description of the BDSM character and
Oh
the
yeah.
mother. So when I see this, because when you see some of the different characters in the Black Zodiac, they don't really look like the final ghosts that are in the house.
Yeah,
And
there's
I
a little
think
discrepancies here and there.
yeah, and I think it's because things like that, like the ghost book, which was a prop in the movie, had to be designed as early as possible because they had to have that on set. So I think, and I don't have this confirmed, but by looking at that photo, it sounds to me like it was based on the script of the BDSM version, because that doesn't look like a mother and child. That looks more like some sort of sex thing happening with all the leather straps and what have you.
Yeah, that's the
Uh,
funny thing about continuity when it comes to films like that. It's like every once in a while I just see things that can kind of go, that don't quite add up. What's up with that?
Yeah, well,
That's
to
pretty funny.
take us a small detour here for a second, it reminds me of I did a movie in 1999 called Dudley Do Right with Brendan Fraser and Sarah Jessica Parker and Alfred Molina. And once again, like with this, they had the film was very adult oriented. It wasn't made for kids. It was made almost like a nostalgic piece for the adults who remember Dudley Do Right from the 60s.
Right.
So the script was very adult oriented. It had a lot of gay jokes. It had stuff about the New York Times. It was all stuff that kids wouldn't get.
Right.
Then the studio saw the film and they're like, oh, what is this? Nobody's going to see this. Kids aren't going to get this. So they reshot about 40% of the film to dumb it down and to make it stupider for kids. You know, that
Oh
now they
man.
have the horse farting and sticking out his tongue and floorboards are hitting Dudley Do Right in the face and what have you.
Yeah.
But just like with 13 Ghosts, where they had to go into production on the Black Zodiac before the final script was done. Same with Dudley Do Right. You know how they have like novelizations of films, and so they created like a children's novelization of Dudley Do Right that you can go to the bookstore, you can go to the kids section, and you can buy the children's novelization of Dudley Do Right. The problem is, because it was done so early in production, it's based on the adult script. So kids must have been confused, because if they went and saw the film in the theater and they liked it,
Right. You're like, what the hell are we watching now?
so then they go to the bookstore and they get the book, which has the Dudley Do Right, and it says based on the script. And you start reading it, and there's all these gay jokes, and there's a gay bar in Miami, and they're packing them up in a box, and they're shipping Dudley Do Right to Cuba, and there's like all this stuff.
Man.
So that's what reminds me of just like with 13 Ghosts, when you do stuff early, and they did the same thing with Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed. There's a game that you can buy, a board game, and my character's photo in the game is based on a makeup test, not from it's like they took pictures early on in production
And just use what they had left over.
They just used what they had laying around at that point. And then you could get toys at Burger King during Scooby-Doo 2. And when you you would go on to the Burger King website, the picture they had on there was from another makeup test. And and I didn't look like any of these makeup tests in the final film. So it's hilarious. Man. But going back to 13 Ghosts, so eventually they decided to go with a big baby and a mother. So after our second makeup test, I'm standing outside the trailers with Steve Beck, the director, and he's trying to decide what kind of look. And I had basically this hair at the time. It was a little bushier, more of an afro then. And he says, what kind of hair do you think the great child should have? And just then Shannon Elizabeth, on her way to the makeup trailer, she stops by and he says, Shannon, I got a question for you. The great child, what kind of hair do you think he should have? He's a big baby. What kind of hair? And she's thinking, and she all of a sudden you see her eyes open up. She goes, oh, you remember that cartoon in the 60s? He was like a big duck and he was in a big diaper and he had a bonnet and then he had like a big blonde curl. And Steve goes, Baby Huey? And she goes, yes, Baby Huey. I think he should look exactly like that. So off I go to the makeup trailer. They shave off all my hair except the black tuft in the front. And then I had to go get my hair dyed. So every 3 days I'd have to go back in and get my dyed blonde. And then I had to get my roots touched up because my roots started showing. So basically for three months, I basically walked around looking like a poodle's ass. You know? And of course, at the beginning of production, you know, you're a little embarrassed. And so you're wearing all your baseball caps and you're trying to hide it. By the end of the 3 month shoot, I was walking around in public with little barrettes on my hair. Because, you know, he just didn't give a fuck at that point. No, at that point, I just wanted to be done with it. But I was also so used to being that character by that point. I mean, there were nights where I'd go home still partially in the Great Child makeup, because at that point I was about 2 pounds shy of 600 pounds, and 6'6", 600 pounds. That's a pretty big baby, right?
Yeah.
And so they said, "Don't worry, the production is going to provide you with showers. So we're going to get showers on out by the trailer, so you can take a full shower." Because I had body makeup on every inch of my body.
Oh yeah, you didn't even look the same at all.
No, and the thing was, everyone else has all these big prosthetic makeup jobs and these big long uh, makeup applications. And me, it was just body makeup, but I had like 3 layers, because they had to whiten me down first. So they had these big horsehair brushes, and they basically just spackled me down in this white pasty looking stuff. Then they had to take an airbrush and put in all the veins and all the open sores and stuff all over my body. And then they had to bring in the detail. So it was one of the longer makeup jobs, only because, I have a lot of square footage, and so it was a long time. So then with all of that makeup done, and it was funny because even once again, it's funny. They took pictures of me. We weren't, I had gotten my hair cut, shaved my head. I had the tuft, the hair.
Yeah.
And then they tell me, they're doing some photos in the studio. So they rushed me to the studio. They didn't have the bib yet because they were still designing the look. So someone took a piece of cloth and just tied it around my neck to create like the look of a bib.
Right.
And I've got the black tuft of hair.
Yeah.
And they took pictures. Somehow those pictures ended up going to Fangoria, because once again,
Yeah.
there I am. I open up Fangoria, and there's a full page picture of me with this piece of cloth tied around my neck and the dark hair on top. And it just always kills me. It's like, they just send out whatever they got whenever someone requests something. So it was a long 3 months of sitting around. There were days where there's 12 ghosts, so that's 12 makeup jobs.
Yeah.
So there's days where each of us had 2 or 3 makeup people. So you're looking at, I don't know, 20, 25 makeup people plus the 12 ghosts. So there'd be days where all 12 of us are in full makeup. All of our makeup people are with us. And then we're sitting there all day waiting for them, because they're shooting scenes with Shannon Elizabeth or with the kid or with Matthew Lillard.
Okay.
And so we're waiting for them to finish so that we can go and shoot our stuff. And there was a couple days at least where they would come up to us after 12, 13 hours of sitting there sweating all the makeup off. And they'd say, "Oh, I'm sorry, guys. We're not going to get to you guys today."
Oh, geez.
Go back to the trailers, take it all
do
off,
it all over again.
and come back the next day and do it all because you're waiting for someone. It's like, why schedule the regular actors and the monsters, the ghosts, on the same days? It's clearly
it don't
two
make
different.
sense to me.
The only time it makes sense is if we're in the scene together.
Right.
And with the monsters, a lot, I always get confused. because in Scooby-Doo, we're monsters.
Yeah.
In 13 Ghosts, we're ghosts.
I'm
I'm always calling my Scooby-Doo character a ghost. I'm always calling this one a monster. You play so many of these type characters, you lose track. I've been trolls. I've been ogres. I've been ghosts. I've been monsters. In Trick or Treat, I was neither. I was just a big giant baby.
Yep.
So I'm one of those people who has played a baby in diapers more than once. So that's have diaper will travel.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of older folks that would agree with that.
Exactly.
I won't mention anything that rhymes with Aiden.
So it was an interesting film too, because the house that we were in, I mean, the very first time I showed up on set, I thought to myself, now this is some production design. Everything was real. I mean, the house was made up of like 2,500 panes of glass.
That was incredible.
It was like a 2-3 story house. It was all in the studio. It was we have a huge special effects studio. I think it was the largest in Canada at the time, or maybe even North America. So they built this entire house in a studio. Um, Even the shot where you see them drive up to the thing, that's just all green screen. And the house, I think that was even in the
Right.
studio. Um, and then at the end of the film, when the house blows up, they actually blew the hell
Oh
up.
no.
They
No
blow.
shit.
So they saved a few panels of glass and stuff for if they
Yeah.
had to do reshoots or anything,
Yeah.
and then they just blew it up. And but I said to myself when I walked into that, I said, this should be nominated for an Oscar for production design, because there's
Yeah.
such deep. That house was amazing, and you usually don't see that kind of detail in a horror film.
Well, no, and the other thing is like, the first time I can remember watching that movie, I'm like, this was like way ahead of its time with the way the cinematography was and all
Yeah,
that. So it was
and
very
because
impressive.
the ghosts were all practical effects. The
Right,
the
right.
makeup wasn't a big people running around being chased by tennis balls and
Yeah.
pretending to act like there's something there. And I truly believe that you can see it in the other actors' eyes when they're actually looking at something that's in front of them
Mm.
versus pretending to look at something. All the Marvel movies, all of those big superhero movies, they're usually not looking at anything. They're
Right.
usually just reacting to somebody holding a stick and saying, "Okay, this is the bad guy here."
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
when a 6'6", 600-pound guy with a bloody axe comes around the corner, there's no acting involved.
No, you're holy shit no matter what.
And my favorite direction from Steve Beck on that film, because my character doesn't talk, and none of the ghosts really, none of them really communicate.
No.
Uh, but he said to me, okay, when we first meet the great child, I want you to scream bloody murder, but don't open your mouth. And I
Huh.
thought, oh, that's an interesting direction. So if you watch, like when I come around the corner, I think it's him and the maid, and they come around the corner, and that's when I first come up. I'm now you see because the first time you see me, I'm in my little cubicle with my mom,
Right.
and she's feeding me, and everybody thinks she's feeding me baby food, but she's actually scooping the puke off my bib, putting it in the jar,
Oh
and then
God.
feeding me back the
Yeah.
puke.
Yeah.
But when you see that I've been broken out of my cell and you see me come around the corner with my mom, and I've got the bloody axe dragging next to my side, and the first thing you hear is,
Right, right.
and when you listen, you hear it, but you don't really know what you're hearing. It just sounds like some creepy sound effect, but
Right, right.
it's actually me screaming with my mouth closed.
No shit. I
And
would have never thought of that. That's
no,
brilliant.
and because it's so funny because 13 Ghosts is so filled with practical effects,
Yeah.
yet Steve Beck comes from the world of visual effects. He was like a visual effects supervisor
Right.
and it's almost like the first opportunity he had is like, I want to make a movie that has practical effects.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many movies now, uh, what you find, especially with the visual effects, is there's that feeling of danger is missing.
Yeah.
Like, when, like, I remember the first time I saw one of the newer Spider-Man movies, and he's swinging in New York between buildings.
Yeah.
It just felt like you're watching a cartoon. There was no sense of danger. Like in the old days, if it was a stunt guy on a rope
Yeah.
and he's swinging, and your eyes tell you that that's a real guy, there's a different level of attention there.
Oh yeah.
And when you're running from a ghost that's actually there,
Yeah.
you rather than nothing, you feel that, and I think the audience feels that too. It comes across in the performances.
Yeah.
And I like to say that when you're acting with another actor, and you can see it, it's like their soul reflects in their eyes, in the other person's eyes,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you can tell by the way they're talking that they're actually interacting with somebody. And 13 Ghosts, there was some interesting interactions because it all happened mostly on set.
Yeah.
Because the ghosts, we had a tent, and everybody stayed in there, and it had like because we had fans and everything to keep us all cool.
Yeah.
So we never really interacted with the actors. We'd pass them on the way to the trailer and stuff. But as far as hanging out, going to craft service, getting a sandwich, all that stuff, we basically lived in two separate worlds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our only interaction with them was really as the ghosts on set.
Right.
So when people always say, "What was it like working with Matthew Lillard?" I worked with Dennis Rafkin. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't really work with Matthew Lillard,
Right.
but the thing that's the one of the best trivia things from 13 Ghosts is that because the house was all glass, all the walls, all the floors, all the ceilings, everything was glass.
Right.
Glass reflects. Well,
Mhm.
when you're shooting a film, you can't have your actors surrounded by reflections, you know, because you don't want to see what you're not supposed to see, right?
Well, yeah. It's like, how do you keep the boom mics and everything out of the shot?
Yeah, because you know, like when you're watching a movie and a car drives by, and you just see a car drive by, but if you go back and you freeze frame it,
Yeah,
as
you
soon
can
as the
see
car
where the
passes the
cameras
camera,
are.
you can see the whole
Yeah.
camera crew standing there, right? But it's because it's such a flash,
Oh, yeah.
it's no big deal. But with 13 Ghosts, they told the crew to wear black clothes. They told everybody to crouch down between takes. Then they like really backlit and overlit the house. So it was super hot in there because they had so many lights
Oh, yeah. It's like a
that,
greenhouse at that point.
yeah. And you got to turn all the fans off because the
Yeah.
fans make noise when you're
Yeah.
shooting. So every so often, I like to call it my 13 Ghost drinking game. Next time you watch the film, every time you see a crew member crouching in the
Take a
background in the
shot.
corner in a reflection or something, because every so often there's always that one crew member who forgot to wear his black shirt. So you all of a sudden you'll see like a guy with a white shirt in the corner. So, but they're quick shots, but
Right. Right.
it's fun. It's like a drinking game. Every time you see a crew member in the reflection of the walls, take a drink.
I
But
think one of the underrated things that you don't see as much, especially like Blu-rays and stuff nowadays, are bloopers. I think
oh
these serious movies on
yeah,
extended versions, like they don't have any of that anymore.
no, that's the frustrating thing with now that everything is on streaming.
Right.
They stream the movie and that's it.
Right.
You know, I used to love get physical media. I used to love having. I mean, I remember back in laser discs, and they used to have the Criterion Collection laser discs before they
Hmm.
had them on anything else. And it was always about the special features. It was always about the commentary. It was all about the behind the scenes films, but also the bloopers and seeing, you know, basically seeing how the sausage is made. You know,
Yeah.
learning some of the secrets. I love that stuff. There's a really good one about one of Quentin Tarantino's movies. It's called Full Tilt Boogie,
Yep.
and it's a documentary of what's it from Dusk Till Dawn,
Yeah.
and that movie by itself is, if anybody wants to know how to make a movie,
Oh,
you
I
know,
know.
because the
They're
camera
awesome.
is, it's not like some of these EPK making ofs where everything feels promotional, everything feels
Hmm.
like a commercial.
Yeah.
The thing I like about Full Tilt Boogie is it's just one of the crew members has a camera and he's just filming all the time. You
Right.
know, when you
Right.
see the actor talking with the director and they're having an off the cuff moment, he's just
Yeah.
standing there filming it. And you really feel like a voyeur. You're on set. You
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
get to see what it's like to make a film. And anyone who's worked in film will tell you their best memories don't come from what you shot. It's the stuff in between, you
Oh,
know,
yeah. I mean,
the
I can speak to
stories.
this honestly. I've only done one independent film, but it was an indie film that got played on Reels.com for a while called How I Dumped My Ex-Boyfriend's Body. And I'm only 3 feet tall and I have a bone condition, so
Yeah.
I played a hitman in a wheelchair. And some of the shit that went on in between takes, and like it was just mind-boggling. You guys can Google that and check it out. I'd love to get behind the camera again in the future, but it just hasn't panned out.
Yeah.
So that was a fun experience for me. There was one scene in particular where I kind of surprised the homeowner, and he's got a can of soda and he sprays it. Now, mind you, we were using the director's house, and all of a sudden he busts open the can of soda, and it goes all over the ceiling. So he's like, "My dad's gonna kill me by the time he gets home." Like,
Oh my
what the
God.
hell?
Well, at least it was him that did it.
Right, right, right. Exactly.
Be worse if you're one of the actors and you're like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Like, oh shit. But yeah, no, I got very lucky in 2013 to be able to do that. We
That's such good casting. I love when you know you go against the grain. I
Yeah,
love especially a guy my size. Uh, it's so boring when you get another. Every time I get an audition or I get a breakdown sent to me from my agents, and it's like big fat guys like, oh, boring. It's like I know
why
what I
must
look
you
like, but
typecast me?
I could play. I always say to my agent and I say to my friends, I could play a lawyer, I could play a doctor.
Hmm.
There's doctors and lawyers my size in the world,
Yep.
but it's almost as if like they have the costume first and then they got to
Right,
find
right.
somebody to fit the costume.
Yeah, yeah.
And too many of those roles are cookie cutter roles, anyways, like, especially in TV. It's like they have everything is based on stereotypes because with TV is so quick, you got
Yeah.
to be able to see someone and know immediately right away what that guy is because
Yeah.
you have these stereotypes in your head. So
Hmm.
detectives always look like the same thing, cops
Yeah.
always look like the same thing. You know, doctor will always have a white coat on, even
Hmm.
though most doctors, when you see them, don't have a white coat on, but our brains tell us a white coat means doctor,
Yeah.
unless it means a scientist. And the way you know the difference is one has a stethoscope around his neck.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I'd be a
No
little worried if
stethoscope, he's a scientist.
the scientist had his stethoscope. I'd be a little nervous. But
Exactly.
yeah, so you know, most people probably aren't aware, but you started up. You're originally from Canada and
Yeah.
started your film career just by happenstance. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I was basically one of those teenagers who, got kicked out of the house and was living on my own and, had a rough start, but I was working at a bar. I was on student welfare, still going to high school. And one day we're sitting in a donut shop, me and my friend, and he says, "What do you want to do today?" I don't know. He goes, "Let's go to Vancouver." And, Vancouver's on the other side of the country. I never been there, don't know anything about it, but I had
Yeah.
nothing else to do. I said, okay. So we went and grabbed our stuff, put it in a bag, jumped on the thing on the bus. 4.5 days later, we get to Vancouver. And, it's one of those things where you get off the bus and it's like, okay, we're here. Now what?
Now what? Yeah, exactly.
So, good thing about being my size is you can walk into any bar and say you're looking for a job as a doorman and
Hmm.
you don't need a resume when you're my size, you are the resume, right?
Yeah.
So I was able to get a job that day, and then I got another job. So that was in November of 1989. By 1990, I had gotten a job at a big nightclub where they had like 25 doormen on a night. It was like 3,000 seat nightclub. It was a massive.
Yeah, that's big for a nightclub.
Yeah, they had built it as a theater nightclub for the World Exposition in 1986. The World's Fair was in Vancouver in
Oh,
1986,
okay.
so they had some of the buildings still left over, and that nightclub continued running as a nightclub. So I was working there as a doorman, and one night I noticed these two women everywhere I'd go. I'd see them like almost like they were watching me, stalking me, kind of
Hmm.
thing in the crowd. And so finally, I walked over towards them because I thought maybe they wanted to report something or they had, something to say. And the lady says to me, "Are you in the film industry?" And I thought, what kind of stupid question is that? I'm working in a nightclub. No. She goes, "Well, you have an interesting face. I think we could do something with that face." I said, "Okay." And the one of the ladies hands me a card. I didn't even look at the card. I just put it in my pocket because in my brain I'm going, bunch of
Yeah,
chicks
whatever.
just
Yeah,
trying to pick me
exactly.
up, whatever.
Yeah.
And they went on their way. I went home at the end of the night, threw the card on my desk. And a couple weeks later, I'm cleaning up all my paperwork and stuff. And I come across this card and I actually stop and read it. And they're talent agents. And I thought, wow, well, they're not going to fake the card.
Right, right.
It's not the movies. People don't make a fake card. So I thought, well, can't hurt. So I called them, went in for an interview, and before the week was up, I was working on a short film. I was an extra, but still, I was working on a short film. And by the end of the next week, I was shooting my first commercial. And there was billboards, there were bus shelter ads, there were ads on the back of the buses. I was on all the TV channels, and I thought, wow, it's that easy. Wow. I went from working in a club and now I'm a superstar. My face is all over town. I'm thinking this is the way it is. Then, of course, the next two jobs were once again doing, $5 an hour extra work on some TV shows. And I thought, this is not for me. That ruined me. I had a taste of stardom right off the top.
Too
much. And it went to my head. But I realized quickly that I need to be right up front. I'm not made for background work. When you're 6'6", for over 400 pounds, you can't blend into the background at all.
I kind of have the opposite problem. I'm half your height and like 100 pounds soaking wet. So I know what you mean, though. You can't just blend in. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And 1992, I had a job as an extra on a movie called Stay Tuned with John Ritter. It was a big film that came out that year. It was like a parody of all the TV shows and stuff that were on the air, but they were made as if they were all in hell. And it was all the parodies were like the hell version. So it was like a hell version of Driving Miss Daisy. And it was like a hell version of Wayne's World. And so John Ritter gets sucked into this remote, which is hooked up to this satellite dish. He gets sucked into it and he ends up going into these TV. He's like popping into all the different TV shows on the network. And I think they decided that this show had the potential of a sequel. So a few months after they had shot here, they came back up to do some reshoots to basically keep the ending of the film open-ended, I think. So there was, if there was going to be a sequel, there was a reason for the sequel.
Yeah.
Which never happened in the end.
Right.
But one of the things that they were shooting a scene at the shopping mall downtown Vancouver, and John Ritter, there's a scene of him going up an escalator, and they had me he was going up while I was on the downside coming down, and we did it a few takes, and then all of a sudden I see the director and John Ritter walking towards me, and I thought, oh, that's not good. I did something wrong. What did I do? And the director goes, big guy, we're going to have to move you. It seems that you're casting a shadow on our star. And we can't have that. So they ended up moving me to the next row of escalators, which were basically at the back of the mall. So I was basically a dot in the background going up and down.
Right.
But I wasn't creating a shadow anymore. So the fun thing of it was, for the rest of the day, John Ritter, every time he'd pass me, he'd go, hey, shadow. And so I didn't make the film, but it didn't matter because that part of the film never made it into the film. But I had my own little John Ritter story, and I got to have him calling me shadow all day.
That's
but
funny.
that was like the nail in the coffin in my extra career when I realized, I can't. I'm either what they're pointing the camera at, or I can't do it. Because I did one more extra work. You know an actor named Tim Matheson?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's been in everything from he was in Animal House, and he's been in tons of TV series. Well, he had done a TV movie, and I was hired. One of the very first things I was hired as an extra, and this is when I had a really big. I had an afro. It was like big afro, and I'm sitting. It's in a courtroom, and I'm one of the audience members, one of the people in the courtroom, and you see him come in the back of the court. And he's looking around where to sit. He notices there's a blank seat. There's an empty seat in front of me. So he walks over and sits down. And when they cut to a close up, all of a sudden there's an old lady sitting behind him. And then they cut to the wide shot and you see me sitting back there. Because after they did the wide establishing shot of him coming in, and then we started doing the close-ups of him. All of a sudden, I saw the director go over to him, and I see the one whispering again. It was basically the same thing. It was too distracting having this big mutton head behind him with his big afro. So they replaced me with a woman, but they kept me in the wide shot. So it was just funny. You see me popping in and out of the audience.
No continuity there, guys. Come on.
No, but that was another opportunity for me to really let it sink in that extra work is not for me. I need to be the star.
Yeah.
And I started, it started building towards that. And it was, I was working part-time doing acting and also, any job to pay the bills,
right.
and doing acting on the side all till about 96. And then I had done a short film. It was like a parody. Well, nowadays they call it a fan film. And we had done in 94, we had done a fan film called Alien IV ? And it was basically Alien 4 hadn't been released yet. Alien 3 was as far as that series of movies went.
Right.
So this fan film was asking the question, what happened next? And so we did like our own version of Alien 4. Nice. It was just a little half-hour fan film. You can find it on YouTube, and it's on my YouTube channel. And I had worked with another actor in that little short film, and it was this little thing. We shot it on a home movie camera. Didn't expect anyone to ever see it. It was basically the guys and his friends were having some fun, and they asked a few actors they knew to be in it.
Yeah.
So, not thinking anything of it, a couple of years goes by, and I get a phone call from my friend, the other actor who was in this movie with me, and he says, "Remember that alien thing we did a couple of years ago?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, I showed it to another actor friend of mine, and he started writing a feature script, and your character in this little film stuck with him so much that he basically based the lead character in his feature film on you." Wow. Because of the character you played in the short film. So some guy that I've never met has written a feature film and based the lead character on me. And he says, "Are you willing to meet him to see if you'd like to do the movie?" I was like, let me think about that. Yes. So I got together with him, met him, and I ended up getting to do that film. And so that was the day before. Okay, so that was 96. The day before we're ready to shoot, the director calls me and he says, well, before that was where I had to make my decision, which because this was a feature film, they were going to be shooting for 9 days. Yeah. And I was the lead, so I was going to have to be there for every one of those 9 days. Right. And the boss of the company, I was working as an office manager at a company that made air filtration units, and he wasn't going to give me 9 days off. His office manager is not going to take 9 days off. No. He would let me take, a couple hours off here and there to go to an audition because it was like my hobby, But once he knew that I was going to be on a film for 9 days, I had to realize that, okay, I either want to be an actor or I want to be an office manager. This is the universe telling me, here's your chance to make a decision. Yeah. And I decided, this guy wrote a film for me. I want to be an actor. I'm going to do this. So I quit that job. And that's when I pursued acting full time. And that was in 96. And cut to the movie now. It's the day before we're getting ready to shoot this movie. And the director calls me, says, "Okay, so we got everything set up. We're all good to go. I just need your license number for the insurance, and then I'll see you tomorrow." And I said, "Ooh, I don't have a license." And he says, "Did you read the script?" I said, "Of course I read the script." He says, "You're driving for like 40% of the movie." I said, "Yeah, it's a movie." I figured, I'd be you'd be towing me, or I'd
Right,
be on a
right.
green screen or I'd be on a rear projection or something. And he said, do you think we have the budget for that? That's the budget of our entire film.
Oh
You know,
man.
this is an independent thing that I'm paying for out of my own savings. If you're driving, you're driving.
Yeah.
I said, okay, excuse me. I said, leave it with me. I jumped on the bus. I took the bus across town to the DMV basically, and I went in, got my learner's permit. I ran back. I gave him my learner's permit number, and now I had a legal license. But I had to have somebody in the car with me because as a learner, you're only allowed to be driving if you're getting lessons, right?
Yeah.
So what we ended up doing was I'm driving this big panel van in the movie, and because I only had a learner's permit, they had the key grip would be on his hands and knees on the floor next to me, hiding out of frame.
Right.
I've got lights and a camera hanging off the front of this vehicle because that's normal for a guy who's out learning how to drive, right?
Right.
I'm having to do dialogue. I'm driving. This guy is on his hands and knees hiding, but we're trying to make it legal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so we didn't have any radios, and this was back in 96, so barely anybody had cell phones, but there were two people that had cell phones. So what they did was we had one shot where I'm supposed to be coming down the highway, go up and over this over ramp, and then come towards the camera. So they tell me on the phone, okay, the camera guy is going to be in the middle of the road. He's going to have his sticks. He's going to have the sticks there. He's going to have the camera, and he's going to be pointed at you. And we want you to drive, and then drive straight for him. And as you approach him, he's going to move out of the way and then stop. Okay. So I come flying over the over ramp. I come flying down the highway, and I'm like, wow, he's not moving. He's not moving. Why isn't he moving? He should be moving at any point. I'm getting really close. Finally, I get probably within 10 feet of him at going full highway speed, and he still hasn't moved. So I hit the brakes as hard as I can. The thing comes to a stop just as he grabs the sticks and dives into the ditch next to the highway with the camera and everything. I stop. Now, the van that I'm using, which is a panel van in the movie, is also, we're using it as our grip and our camera truck, right? So it's filled with equipment. I hit the brakes. All of the equipment from the back of the thing slides forward and lands on top of our key grip, who's, if you remember, is crouched on the floor because he's the licensed driver giving me lessons, right?
Good God.
And then the next day after and they go, what did you do? I said, they told me to go 25 feet past the guy. And they said, no, we set to stop 25 feet in front of the guy. So that game of telephone did not work. And then the next day, I'm supposed to drive this panel van up to an intersection. I'm supposed to get to the intersection, and I'm supposed to look left, look right, look left, look right, not know which way I want to go, and go, and then do like a 3-point turn and go back the way I came because I don't know which way to turn, right? Well, this panel van, somebody had decided, the people they were renting the truck from, they had decided to add 10 feet to the back. So you have the rear axle, and then 10 feet beyond where the truck used to end, it continues on. So this thing is all wobbly because it's so far past where the axle is, right? And it's so long, you can't even see the back of it in the window, the mirrors on the side. So I get to set, and the director's not there yet because the director was also the other lead actor, and he's wearing 4 hours worth of prosthetic makeup every day. So he's not even on set yet. He's getting his makeup done. So we're just rehearsing the scene, me driving up to the thing, to the stop sign. I look, can't figure out. I go to back it up, and I proceed to back it up directly into a telephone pole.
Oh, geez.
Like full speed back up, but probably 20 miles an hour, bam, right into the telephone pole. And because I'm not a driver, because I just started driving 2 days ago, I panic. I don't know what to do. So what do? I put the thing in neutral, hit the gas, and now it's just the tires are spinning, nothing's
Right, you can't
happening
do
because
shit.
nothing's going on. Just then I see a car driving past. It's the director coming to set with his makeup on, and he sees this go. So he jumps out of the car, runs over, grabs me, throws me out of the truck, gets the thing back onto the road. Now the back is got a dent like the shape of a telephone pole in the back
Oh
bumper.
man.
So I ended up having to pay the deductible on the rental because, well, it was my fault.
Right,
But
right.
I couldn't see so I was basically like turning to where I thought I needed to go and then
Yeah.
backed up, but I had clearly not gone back far enough. And the saddest part of it all was that was in rehearsal. I still had to shoot the scene.
Holy shit. Really?
So the very
Wow.
next take, I've got to do it, but now I've got to keep in mind not to do that again.
Yeah.
And it worked out, and I end up driving through in the whole movie, and everything was fine. But those are the that was my opportunity to pursue acting full time. But at the same time, that could have been the end of my acting career.
Yeah,
It could
right.
have started and ended right there. But thankfully, we finished that, and my career took off. And I got the very next thing I did was a big studio film called Excess Baggage with Alicia Silverstone, Christopher Walken, Benicio del Toro. I got to do 6 days on that.
That's
And
awesome.
that was great because I played a truck driver who comes to Alicia Silverstone's rescue. She creates this big scene, and she is trying to escape from her uncle, played by Christopher Walken. So she creates this big scene in this diner and acts like he has been attacking her and abusing her. And we like jump up as a bunch of truck drivers sitting there eating our
Yeah, yeah.
breakfast. We jump up and come to her rescue and like,
Hmm.
who the hell do you think you are? We're gonna, how dare you do this to this little girl? And but leading up to that, it was us sitting there, and we spent 6 days because it was a long scene building up to the diner, in the diner, and then out in front of the diner. So basically, for 6 days, I ate breakfast. Take after take after take after take. I just ate breakfast. And the
Jeez.
lady, the prop master, I remember I wasn't a lady, a guy, second or third day, he says, Ernst, you don't have to eat all the bacon.
Famous last words, right?
And I said to him, when they yell action, I'm eating breakfast and I like bacon. So all of a sudden he comes up and he says, okay, well, you've eaten us out of bacon. So we're going to have to switch to breakfast sausage. So once
Oh
again,
man.
if you watch the film, it's like, if you look in the background,
Yeah.
bacon sausage, bacon sausage, bacon sausage, because it keeps cutting back and
They
forth.
couldn't make up their mind. Oh man, that's funny.
Because I had eaten all the bacon.
Yeah.
And I learned from that if you're doing an eating scene in a movie, just don't eat
Yeah.
because you're going to be doing it all day. I did an episode of The Outer Limits with Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway? And we're sitting at the show starts. We're in a fondue restaurant, so everybody's got the big thing of fondue, the liquid cheese, and they're
Yeah.
dipping their bread in it and everything. And both Colin and I decided, we were looking around, watching the other actors, getting ready to practicing how to use the fondue and everything. And we both decided right then and there, I'm not going to be eating cheese and bread all day. No,
No,
thank
fuck
you.
that.
So we took a piece of bread, we dipped it in the cheese, and then we put it on our plate as if that was the last one, and it was just one too many. So we just
Yeah,
never continued,
yeah.
and never ate another piece, never ate any for the rest of the day, because after 6 days of eating breakfast, and they keep coming up to you, they go, "Here's your bucket," because they think, like some actors, at the end of the take, the actor turns around and pukes it all up spits it all out because they don't actually eat it.
Right.
I was like, I don't have that makeup. If I put food
Nah.
in my mouth, I'm eating it. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I
right.
can't. But those are the little things. So that 1996 is when I decided the universe is going to tell me that this is what's happening. Okay, I'm going to listen, and everything moved forward. So I basically didn't get into acting. Acting just came and got me.
Right.
And like I had mentioned to you the last time we spoke, that was basically the same thing that happened when I was a kid. I started school and kindergarten. Turns out the school has a Christmas pageant every year, and they have the biggest kid in the school play Santa Claus. And I was in kindergarten, and a teacher approached me. She says, "Would you like to play Santa Claus in our Christmas pageant?" I said, "Wow, sure." Had no idea at the time that they were
Right.
asking me because I was the biggest kid in the school.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I doubt you would get away with that nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, you're the biggest kid in the school. You're Santa Claus. Come with me.
Yeah, right.
But it got me so intrigued by the fact that I was sitting on stage in this throne. I was basically the star of the thing, and I'm in a play with a bunch of grade fours and grade fives, and I'm in kindergarten,
Yeah.
and I'm the one that they're all looking up to, and once again, I was forced into it in school, and then I got basically forced into it. So you have to listen to the universe. The universe will look out for you, but you have to be open to those opportunities when they come. You know, if I had said, even in kindergarten, I don't want to do that, who knows if I would have pursued acting.
Right.
But because I got the bug because of that, all of a sudden I had to be in everything. I was in all the school plays. I was doing improvisation. I was doing the assemblies, the skits. Anytime there was an opportunity, they asked some kids at the one school if anyone wanted to volunteer to go to the old age home and do like improv and do some funny skits for them because they didn't have many visitors. So we would go. But the reality was, I just figured out, hey, this is a good way to get out of class.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go to the group homes. Yep. And as it turns out, I ended up having so much fun, and it was so rewarding in the end, getting to see the smiles on all these faces of these people who don't get many visitors. But the reality of it was, I just wanted to get out of class. And same thing, one year they had a Halloween costume contest, and I heard on the PA system, they said the Halloween costume, the assembly will be in the cafeteria on stage at 2:00. And I thought, 2:00, school's not over till 3:30. Ooh, that means if you're in the Halloween costume contest, you get out of class.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at myself, and I'm just dressed. I didn't wear a costume. I have no costume. So I grabbed a piece of paper, and I wrote on the piece of paper, "Undercover cop." And I stuck it on my shirt when 2:00 came.
Holy shit.
So when you look at in our yearbook for that year, there's the assembly on stage in the cafeteria, and everyone is in costumes. And then there's some weird tall guy at the end just standing there with a piece of paper on his shirt. But yeah,
hilarious.
I'm an undercover cop. So yeah, I've always been an actor at heart anyways.
Yeah, evidently so.
Makes sense that I would fall into this.
Yep. So for anybody that's aspiring to get into the business, obviously, you kind of stumbled into it in certain aspects. Yeah. But what's the biggest piece of advice you would give somebody trying to even contemplate getting in?
Well, first of all, the biggest thing is you don't have to pay anybody. You see all these things like, pay us this much to join the agency, or to take these modeling classes, or to take these photos, or we're having this, someone from Disney is coming to town and is taking names and taking auditions, and it only costs you $150. You don't need to pay, especially with, like you were saying, with these, there's so many independent films, horror films, whatever your favorite genre type of film is. everyone is making a film. If you join some of these horror groups on Facebook or some of these independent film groups on Facebook, make friends, because you'll figure out quickly that there's always somebody in your town
Yeah.
who's doing something, and they're always going to need someone to be a zombie or to be a dead body or to be something in the film. And when you're starting out, when you're making films and you have no money, you just have desire and interest. People willing to work for free is your number one asset. So,
Yeah.
you just have to make yourself known to these people. And so I would say, if you want to get into acting, first of all, just let people know you want to get into acting. And if they need something, make yourself available. Then if you have agencies in town, see if you can get an agent. It doesn't have to be a big agent. It just has to have someone who has access to what's happening in your town.
Right.
Also, if you want to take classes, if you don't have any natural talent, if you haven't been, acting the fool your whole life, but this is something, people always say, I don't have any acting experience. And I always say, do you leave your house?
Yeah, right.
Then you have acting experience.
Yeah.
Because the way you talk to the lady at the bank is not the same way you talk to the person at the grocery store or your doctor or your mother. Or, we have versions of ourselves
Yeah.
that we use all day. That's acting. People try to make too much of it. They try to make it seem like it's this big, difficult thing, when the reality is, you've broken the cookie jar, but you don't want your mom to find out. What are you going to tell her? And then you don't want to get caught. So you're going to tell her the best story possible. That's acting. It's the same thing. It's we and that's that's the problem I have, is after this many years of being all these different characters and all these different versions of myself. Now, when someone says, be yourself, I don't know what myself is anymore.
Yeah.
I've got over 100 characters that I've played, plus all the versions of myself that I've introduced to people. When I don't like schmoozing and all that, stuff. So if I go to a rap party, or if I go to an industry event, I can either be the quiet guy in the corner who's shy, or get a few drinks in me, or if it's something where I already know all the people there.
Right.
So yeah, that is the biggest thing, is first acknowledging that you already know how to act. You know how to do this. It's just being able to turn it on when you have to. And if you have that ability, like we all do, then make yourself available. Put yourself out there. If somebody's looking for someone, you can't expect people to come to you if they don't know that you're wanting to do this, right?
Right.
It's one thing if you're already in the acting world, things are going to come to you naturally. Like with this movie, because I had done one movie, another movie came into play. Right. So you have to let people know that you're interested. But my biggest thing is always just don't put money up. If you want to work on a film, I know a lot of these like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and these stuff, they do things like pay $500 for a walk-on part. If you're really interested in producing a film and becoming a producer, then do that.
Right.
If you want to walk on in a film, then do that. But paying $500 for the chance to walk on, it's like you're paying for your roles, and you're supporting indie film, but it's just a backwards way of supporting. It's like you don't need to buy your roles.
Right.
I know a lot of people who do that because they're like, I'm supporting indie film. But really, all you're doing is buying yourself a role.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to volunteer your time, you're already buying into the film. You're giving them your time. You're giving them your effort. You know, you don't need to also pay for that privilege.
No.
So my biggest thing is always don't pay for anything. There's enough scam artists out there. There's enough people come to town, take my class and you can get into this or get into that, or this agent is looking to add to his roster. Come to his class. They're not going to teach you anything. All they're going to do is take your name and your money.
Yeah.
So just don't pay for things. There's enough opportunity out there. Just make people aware of you. And, but at that same time, do like I did. Do all the acting stuff in school. Do the skits, do the assemblies, do the plays, do whatever. You have a community theater in your town. Do that. Like I said, make yourself known for the films. People, the more stuff you do, no matter how small it is, the people in the know will see it, will hear about it, and they'll know that you're someone that they can act, that they can rely on for acting. But yeah, just don't. I hear all these horror stories about people who, my child had to pay for this class and had to get these photos and had to get this. No, you don't have to do any of that.
No.
So, just take every opportunity you have and act on it.
Absolutely. No, I tell people all the time that's how I've gotten as far as I have, and what I do is just taking chances and putting myself out there, and anybody can do anything they want. You just gotta have a good set of cojones, whether it's literal or figurative, and just take a shot. You can't make shots that you don't take.
It's like people say, well, one day I'd love to have a podcast. Do you have a camera?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a microphone? There, you can have a podcast. Exactly. You don't have to overthink it.
Right.
You may not have an audience, but you'll never have an audience if you don't do something.
Yeah.
You got to do the something first.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it ain't that hard. It ain't like with movies now. When we started that film in '96, that was back when you had to do film, it was 16 millimeter film, and you had to have the big flatbed editing bay, and everything was non-linear, and everything was everything was what's the word I'm thinking of? Analog. There was nothing digital.
Right.
So you had to have a lot of money up front to make film. Now everybody's got a phone in their hand that has better cameras in it than most cameras that people used to have with their their handy cams and stuff.
Yeah.
So you just have, if you have a story to tell, you have many opportunities to tell it nowadays.
Yeah.
The problem is getting it seen. And I think the best place to do that is YouTube.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to do your own marketing, if people are shrewd enough and they know what they're doing on social media, and they know the different sites, and they know how to advertise themselves, and they know how to brand themselves, all you got to do is take what you've learned there and do the same with your own movie. And basically all you have to do is have your movie somewhere that you can direct people to. Yeah. It doesn't need to be on Tubi. It doesn't need to be on Plex. It doesn't need to be on any of these fancy streamers. Everybody has access to YouTube.
Yeah.
And now most people have YouTube on their TVs, Roku or whatever.
Right.
So you're still watching it on TV.
Yeah.
You just have to make it and then put it up. And then you have to do the legwork. You got to let people know about it. You got to talk to people. You got to send out press releases and all that stuff. But if you want to make a movie, it ain't that hard anymore.
No,
it's not. Now, if you want to get paid,
that's a whole different story.
That's a whole other story. I've produced 4 films and I'm still waiting for some pay.
Yeah.
It's easy enough to put your own money into something.
Right.
It's hard enough to get someone to give you money for it.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing. And I haven't gotten there yet. I'm just happy that someone pays me to do this as a job, acting. Because when I was a kid, if I had known that this was an option, movies were done in Hollywood. TV was done somewhere else. I don't know. When I was a kid, I'd look at a TV and those people lived in the TV for as much as I knew.
Yeah.
And the thought of doing that for a living, well, how do you get into the TV? stuff is done somewhere else. You don't
Yeah.
realize, especially now with what we were just talking about, with everyone having a camera and everyone having access to stuff, films and TV are being made everywhere now.
Yeah.
Not to mention that there's 10,000 venues for them. There's like how many streamers, how many
Oh
how many
yeah. I mean,
different channels,
the possibilities are endless now.
and each one of them needs product.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to do stuff is getting bigger and bigger. Just don't expect to become a millionaire
No.
from doing it. That's the only problem. Is the more they stretch it out, the more it gets thinned out, and there's more opportunity.
Yeah.
There's the money also gets spread out.
Spread out. Yeah. It's similar to the independent music scene that I'm in.
Yeah.
Like you said, you got people in there paying, to either sell tickets ahead of time or, you know, linking up with the wrong people and that sort of thing. So I see that all the time.
And yeah, and everyone can make music now with their computers and what
Right.
have you at home, but in the end, they still got to know about you. So either you're doing stuff live,
Yeah.
and you're there. The amount of people who have created careers not because they had a record contract, not because they had an album, they were just good live.
Yeah.
And they toured a lot. They didn't make a lot of money, but eventually, especially in cities, there are people that are like massively city famous.
Yeah.
Within their town, everyone knows them and everyone goes to see them. It's just what the internet now has done is taken those people that used to be city famous, and all of a sudden now you got a fan in Bulgaria because he saw your thing on Bandcamp or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the good thing about the internet is that you can stretch. The world is global now.
Definitely.
The global village system with the internet. That's the good thing, especially like what I was saying about joining horror groups and stuff. Before, you had no idea how to find like-minded people,
right?
Especially before the internet, unless you were part of a fan club or part of a newsletter or something.
Yeah.
You just figured you were on your own. You were your own kind of person. Nobody had the same kind of interests as you. People used to buy Fangoria if they were into horror or if they were into makeup and stuff, because that was their only connection. That was the only way when I was a kid. That was the only way I knew about independent horror or all of the low budget schlocky stuff that was out there. You didn't see it anywhere. It wasn't advertised anywhere. It wasn't sold anywhere. I remember in 84, 83, 82, the very first time I went to a video store. And it was a big deal, first of all, to be able to watch a movie that wasn't on TV blew my mind. But then going to the video store and walking around, it's like, I've never heard of half of these movies.
Yeah.
Because they were all straight to DVD, straight to video, straight to VHS. And that's when you realized, wow, if people are paying attention, there's a market for this. And I think Trauma, for example, caught on to that real early. It's like with VHS and with rentals, especially, there's a market for our stuff out there.
Yeah.
We don't need to have millions of dollars. We just need to have interested people. And now that we have video stores, we have somewhere to direct them to. And I thought, I remember the first time I saw a movie called Dr. Butcher MD, or I think the other name for it is Cannibal Holocaust. And it's one of the most graphic movies I've ever seen. But because it was unrated and because as a kid, your dad would say, go to the video store and rent whatever you want. We'll watch that tonight. And I remember picking Dr. Butcher MD because I thought the title was cool.
Yeah, right.
And next thing I know, they're cannibalizing people and ripping them open and sucking on their intestines. And my dad's looking at me like, that's the last time you're chewing in the movie.
Yeah, I can't go through that filter again. So before we wrap up here, I just want to say that today's episode is brought to you by Speed Even Promotions, Boiling Guitars, Raymond Remodeling, and a whole bunch of other places. So check out bulldoguncensored.com/sponsors for more details. So, Ernst, before we wrap up here, do you have anything going on right now that you want people to know about?
Yeah, I did a film for some friends. It's called Riding Shotgun. It's directed by Dion Copland and produced by Louise Weird. They are some up and coming filmmakers. They had Cold Wind Blowing was a horror film that they had out on the festival circuit a couple years ago, and they asked me to do a cameo in it. So that's something that's coming up. There's the Frozen Dead graphic novel that I'm part of. It's their 25th anniversary, and they asked me to guest star in it. So they have a few panels where I appear as C. Ernst Harth, and they even allowed me to write my own dialogue as
Oh, no
far as
kidding.
they said, here's the situation. This is what's happening. How would you reply to this? How would you answer? And I told them, and so now I'm in the comic,
Nice.
and you can check that out on Facebook. There's the Frozen Dead Facebook group, and I did a video for a band called Melody Whore, WHORE, one word, and it's called Thick as Thieves, and you can find that on YouTube. I'm the star of it, me and the singer Mello, who's in it as well. And it's a pretty crazy out there music video. I'm like my character's name is Deviant Ringleader, and I'm basically someone who has captured her and put her in a cage
Oh,
and
okay, yeah.
trying to suck her soul. So yeah, it's Thick as Thieves and Melody Whore, and you can find that on YouTube. And that's basically what I got. I got another video coming out soon for a guy named Noble Sun. That's the name of the band, but there's no date on that one yet. But no, it's been slow. So I've been doing music videos. Anyone who wants this big galoot in their video. So, but the biggest thing I have to promote is on my Facebook page, C. Ernst Harth, CE Harth at Facebook, is I have photos that I sell at conventions. A lot of people can't make it to conventions, or they just can't hook up with you. So they can come to my Facebook page and pin to the top. I have all the information regarding what prints I have available from what movies: Trick or Treat, Scooby-Doo 2, 13 Ghosts, Dead Rising Watchtower, X-Files, the Once Upon a Time. Plus, I have about 20 or 30 custom prints from other movies because I've done over 100. Dreamcatcher, so there's
Yeah.
lots of films that people know me from. And I sell them for $30 Canadian, and I'll sign them however you want, and I'll ship them out. That's all included. And this way it keeps me in touch with people. So that's the
Yeah, that's
biggest thing
great.
I'm promoting is my photos on my page.
Awesome. Well, Ernst, I appreciate your time and coming along and doing this again with me now that we seem to survive the technological problem. So,
Technology makes everything easier.
oh, yeah, sure it does. All right, folks, we'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks a lot.